To hot stamp or not to hot stamp? That is the question. Hi YouTube, Autumn Beckman here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My channel is all about luxury on a budget, so if you're into that sort of thing, make sure you subscribe. Click the bell notification icon to be notified when I post new videos, and like the videos that you enjoy. Today we're going to talk all about hot stamping. Hot stamping, let me just show you an example from Louis Vuitton specifically, is where you have an item stamped like this with a letter or an image. It depends. There are different options for you. I'm going to show you some of the items that are most popularly hot stamped from Louis Vuitton, and then we'll talk about whether or not that's really a good idea and why. First, let's talk a little bit about the hot stamping process. It's been my experience that you can purchase specific items that are able to be hot stamped. Not everything is able to be hot stamped. You can buy them new from the store, or you can buy them pre-loved and take them in and ask Louis Vuitton to hot stamp them. I'm not sure if every store does this. I know my store, the main store at the Houston Galleria, they have the hot stamping machine there. I don't know that every store does. Maybe some have to send it away to a store that does. I'm not really sure about that. What I do know is that when you go in, the process is you take your item, you fill out this form that they give you, and that lets you select the size of the letters, the color if you want a color. So here I got this gold foil, but you don't have to get a foil at all. You can just get an embossed stamp like that one. And they also have a variety of colors. Some of the colors of the foil are shiny like this one is, and then some are matte. If you're doing your initials, you'll have the option to put a period between the initials, not at the end after one, unless you specifically request that and they consent to do it. But the Louis Vuitton style generally is not to have a period after the last letter, just between the letters. You also pick the location on the item that you want the hot stamp to be. You might draw a little sketch just to make it extra clear. And I've seen some people get really creative with their hot stamping. You have to trust the people at Louis Vuitton to do this because they're the ones doing the hot stamping. Some people are like experts at it and they can line everything up perfectly and do a beautiful job. Other people not so much. Not everybody really knows what they're doing on those machines. If you're taking in something that would be difficult to replace, I wouldn't get too fancy with it. That's just me. I've seen in the Facebook groups, people have shown lots of different items they have had hot stamped, and there are things that are crooked, or one letter is higher than the other letter, or one letter is crooked, or there are all kinds of things that can happen if you start getting a little complicated with the hot stamping. So personally, unless you know for sure that your person is fantastic at it and you trust them, personally I would keep it simple with hot stamping. Now let's look at some of the most commonly hot stamped items from Louis Vuitton. I already showed you luggage tags. So there are two different sizes of luggage tags, the small and the large, and you can get both hot stamped. I will say too that like there's a dog hot stamp. I'll see if I can find a picture and put it here. Personally, I would not put that dog stamp on a large tag. I see a lot of people doing that, and that dog stamp is really tiny. And just for me as an artist, proportionally, that leaves a lot of empty space, and I just don't like how it looks. But of course, it's up to you, your item, your choice. I've also seen people have bag charms like this, the leather bag charms, hot stamped, and where you would get that stamped is on the back. People will put their initials right up here above the Louis Vuitton stamp. I've also seen SLGs hot stamped. So for example, a wallet, you might open that up and have your initials put down here or over on the side. Same thing with coin holders or card cases. There are lots of items like this. I think as long as they have a flat surface to work with, they can probably hot stamp it for you. Another very popular small leather good to have hot stamped is agendas. And let me show you what I have done to mine. So here's the inside, and people will get their initials there or down in the corner. Passport holders is another example. Now on mine, it looks from a distance like it's hot stamped, but it's not. I didn't want to get this hot stamped, so what I did was I went to Hobby Lobby and I found some gold foil stickers. And I think if you get up close, you may be able to tell a little better that it's a sticker. Notice that you can see the texture of this leather through the sticker, and that's because I just took my fingernail after I put the sticker down and I ran it along and got the sticker in all those little grooves. I have done this before in other pieces and peeled them off, and they come off with no residue. So that has been a really good solution for me if I want something hot stamped, but I don't want to permanently alter a piece. And I do not have a link to those stickers. People have asked me that before. Another thing that some people do is get their bags hot stamped, and I see this most often on Speedies and on Neverfulls. What they'll do is have the hot stamping done on the chap. Now the newer Speedies have a puffy chap. I don't think they'd be able to hot stamp that. And on the Neverfull, there's a problem with hot stamping the chaps on the Neverfull. Let me show you what that is. Notice when I hold the bag level that these chaps aren't straight up and down. Look at the grid pattern on the bag, and the chaps are tilted compared to that grid pattern. So what often happens when somebody goes to hot stamp the chaps is the letters will come out crooked because they align the letters with the chap instead of with the bag. So ultimately your letters are slanted like this instead of lined up with the grid like this. And then it just looks like your letters are crooked even though they're not really on the chap. Does that make sense? So if you wanted to have your Neverfull chaps hot stamped, I would definitely make sure you're very clear on that piece of paper that you want the letters lined up with the pattern on the bag and not with the angled chap. All right, now let's talk about whether or not it's really a good idea to do hot stamping. For me personally, the only thing that I ever have hot stamped are luggage tags. So the two examples that I gave you here, and I do have a couple more, but these are representative of what I've had done. This one, I had them do the A for me, so I took that in the store and had it stamped. This one I purchased off eBay with the stamp already on it, because the New York stamp is a stamp that you could only get in New York. So I wouldn't have been able to get this stamp unless I flew to New York, and that would be quite an expensive luggage tag. Oh, by the way, there are special edition stamps like this that you can only get in certain places. Sometimes if you travel somewhere, there'll be like a Guam stamp, for example. I've seen that one a lot, or a Hawaii stamp, and you can only get those at those locations. But then sometimes Louis Vuitton will open up a new store and they'll create a special stamp for that store. So there's a New York City Soho stamp, and within the last year or so, there was a new store that opened in the Dallas, Texas area, and there was a Texas stamp that I wanted so bad, but I couldn't get it. I'm still kind of looking around on eBay for that, but I never see them. But I am glad I got the New York stamp because I used to live there, so that's very special to me too. And sometimes there are seasonal stamps. So you just have to kind of keep an eye out on the Facebook group. That's probably the best way to get the most up-to-date information. Foxy LV is fantastic about posting things that are coming out, brand new things, new releases. So I would definitely follow her on Instagram. That's where she tends to post those things. So again, for me, the only thing I ever hot stamp is luggage tags. The reason for this is that luggage tags, even though they're harder to find nowadays, they're a lot more easily replaced, and I'm less likely to sell them at some point, because a luggage tag is just a bag charm that I can use on any of my bags. Personally, I would never hot stamp anything else. Let me go through some of the items I just showed you and tell you why. I would never hot stamp a bag charm like this. The reason for that is these are limited edition pieces. I feel like if I was to put my initials on it, I would ruin the piece. The main reason I don't hot stamp anything else is resale value. The pieces that I'm showing you, I have no plans to sell them, but I have bought pieces before that I thought I would never sell, and then I end up selling them. Hot stamping greatly affects resale value. It makes things much more difficult to sell, and it makes it more difficult to sell it at the price you might want to get for it. So if I was to hot stamp my wallet here, I might have to price this, I don't know, $100 less. It depends on the item, just because I have my initials. Most people don't want to buy an item that has someone else's initials in it. Some people don't care. Another thing, if you're thinking about resale value, but you really want to go ahead and hot stamp a piece, two things that'll make it a little easier to sell: if you only put one initial instead of 2 or 3. So if I put just an A in here and not A and B, it's going to be really hard to find somebody else that has the A and B initials, but there are a ton of people with just an A for their first name or their last name, so just the A would make it easier to sell. Another thing that will make it a little easier to sell, especially if you have multiple initials, is if you don't put a colored foil on it. You just do the imprint because the imprint is less noticeable, whereas the foil really pops, it really stands out. So that's something to think about if you want a hot stamp. Same thing with the agendas. Agendas are really personal. People put all their stuff in them. That's why I do the stickers instead of actually having this hot stamped. If I ever wanted to sell this, like I have a little glazing issue on the edges, which is pretty normal for these agendas. So if I ever wanted to sell this and upgrade to a brand new one, it would be hard to sell if I had my initials on it. But these I can just peel off, makes it much, much easier. And then at least with SLGs, people can hide those in a bag, but if you get your bag stamped with your initials, that's gonna make it really hard to sell. And if you go to places like The Real Real and Fashionphile, the resellers that I have listed in the description box below my video, you'll see that pretty much anytime you see an item that they have that is hot stamped with someone's initials, it's priced lower than the identical item that doesn't have a hot stamp. And they tend to stay on the site longer and not sell. So you'll often see those in the discounted section because they haven't sold yet. And even if you don't plan to sell a piece and you're not worried about the resale value, at some point you're not gonna be around anymore, right? So think about what might happen to that piece after you're not around, because these pieces, most of them outlive us because they're made to last for the most part. Is it something that you would hand down and maybe that person would appreciate having your initials on it? Or like me, I don't have kids, I don't have anybody that I would hand my pieces down to, so they would end up being sold somewhere. And nobody's gonna want my initials on things, especially if it's a limited edition piece. That's what I'm most adamant about. I mean, you can always find Speedies and Neverfulls and wallets and agendas without initials. But something like this that is a lot more rare and hard to find, I just personally would never ruin it by putting my initials on it. Well, that's my advice on hot stamping. What pieces do you have that you have hot stamped or are thinking about, or what hot stamps do you want? Are there any limited edition pieces that you really want? Are you willing to travel just to get limited edition pieces, or do you have somebody in other places that can get pieces for you? Do you care when you're looking at the Preloved market about whether a piece is hot stamped with someone else's initials? Let us know in the comment section below. And thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Bye.